Here is how I sew these jar openers efficiently and quickly, and it makes closing the hole where you turn it, and makes it so much easier. So I'll show you how I prefer to sew these. I have 2 pieces of fabric, and they are 7.5 by 7. Yes, I know they are not square, but this will all make sense in a minute. And the same with the shelf liner. The shelf liner is the same size. So to layer these, I have this will be the fabric where the shelf liner is on top and it kind of peeks through, and this will be the pattern side. It will be this side. Shelf liner does have a right and wrong way, and the right way is bumpy side up on top of the pretty side of the bottom fabric. And then the top fabric goes pretty side down. Now I take another template. This is my template for cutting out the fabric, or I just use my rotary cutter. But this is a 6-inch square. So now this will become square after I sew it. And yes, I have a lot of extra fabric. Well, not a lot, but I have some extra fabric and some extra shelf liner. But this is the way I prefer to do this because it makes closing it easier and sewing it easier. So I take my template and I'm going to trace around it. See how I have the template set about a 1/2 inch from 3 edges and about 1 inch from the edge that has the opening. That's the important part. The opening has more fabric than the other 3 sides. Okay, now that it's all traced, I am going to sew. I will start here and I will back tack, go around, come to this other side and back tack here. And I have sewn just like I said I was, and I did sew right on that line. You don't have to do any seam allowance. It's right on that line. And this is where the magic happens. This is how you can make a better way to close this, because the shelf liner is bulky and it's kind of, tacky in a sense. So it can be kind of a pain in the butt to close this if you only have a 1/4 of an inch of a seam allowance. This is how I do it. First, I'm going to cut all the corners at a diagonal. I'm not cutting into the thread. And then here's the opening. And I'm going to make a tab. Here, I'll go over here. So like that. See, there's the opening. And then I'll cut this straight across here. And here's the other opening, so I'm going to do the same thing. So you kind of got this looking, this shape. Now I am going to trim these seam allowances with the pinking shears. Not on this part though. And now it's time to turn it. And when I turn it, I want to make sure, because this is the bottom fabric. This is where the shelf liner, this is the fabric that the shelf liner sits on. So I want to make sure that I turn it the correct way. Now sometimes this is a little tricky because that shelf liner, you know, it's tacky because it's rubber. Then I have my handy dandy metal chopstick. It's my favorite. And I'm gonna poke out the corners. And I also add a loop, but I don't do that till the end because you can make the loop into the seam, but I don't like that because it makes my corners kind of bulky, so I do it a different way. And here's my little tabs that I made. I want to make sure that both of the fabric ones are flipped out first. There's both of the fabric ones flipped out. Now I'm going to flip them in, and those tabs are going to kind of hold it down. And then I do the same with the shelf lining. Then I make sure it's a little fiddly, but not as bad as if you had a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's what it looks like. And now I'm going to clip my loop on. The loop is for hanging. I'm going to do that now. And this is a 3.5 inch of ribbon. I cross it like that, just a little bit. I have melted the ends too. And I will put the tab on this corner. I will set it like that so it's on the corner. And then I will just clip it. And I'm going to start here where the opening is. And I am going to sew this about 1/8 inch away from the edge. And I will catch the tab when I get to the corner. I top stitched all the way around, and I did that with the shelf liner on my feed dogs on the bottom, and then I just sewed slow. I don't use tissue paper or anything like that. And see, I caught the tab, and now I'm going to sew an X. And I think the X is important because when you use this and you got this on a jar and you twist it, this can twist quite a bit. So I think the X just makes the shelf liner not twist so much. So to make the X, sometimes I just eyeball it, but I'll mark it for this video. And now I'll sew the X, and I do back tack at the beginning and the end, at the beginning and the end. And when I get to the loop, I start here and I sew down here and I back tack, and then I'm just gonna create a little line right here so it just holds the loop well. And that's it, it's finished. But this is what everybody is getting for Christmas this year. A set of 2.